Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought we'd have another little play and we'll just create something very simple, nothing too complicated at all. So I've got a piece of Pink Frog Smooth Card 300 GSM and it's 4 inches by 6 inches and we're going to use it the landscape way. So the black mat is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 and the card blank is 5 by 7. So we'll just do something nice and simple, and I don't get the right ink pad out. So I'm going to use my Versamark ink pad, and I thought what we'll do is we'll use the Take Flight stamp set TE9. I just adore this stamp set. So what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to use my Versamark, I'm going to give my stamp a little bit of a clean because it's well used and I don't want the black ink to end up all over my Versamark. Now, as you know, I don't usually clean my stamps, but there are occasions where I will give them a little bit of a clean, especially if I'm going into the Versamark. Mainly because I want to try and keep my Versamark as good as possible. So we'll then just use some copier paper and we'll just blot our stamp off. You can see that there is black ink on there. So just drying that off rather than using any kitchen roll because it'll just leave fibres on there. So we'll take our 4 by 6 inch piece of card that Tracy can't speak. We'll grab our acrylic block and I love looking at the design through the acetate. It's just something I love doing. Just think it's fab. Right. So let's grab our stamp. And then we're going to use our Versamark watermark stamp pad. You can see it's not particularly clean anyway, but just trying to preserve it a little bit more so that it doesn't get completely covered in black ink. So let's just give that a really good inking, just like you would with your VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. But because this is a background, you don't have to stress too much. So I'm just going to place the first one, the first image, around about there. There we go. And just like we do with any of our inks, whenever we're inking, we just allow whichever ink we're using just to grab hold of the surface of the card, just so that we get a reasonably good image in the background. And just sort of a little pressure, just pressing around the stamp. And because it's got a little bit of colour, I can see where that is. So then we'll take the image again and we'll ink that with our Versamark once again. Let's just give that a really good inking. And I have got the Versamark on my website. I tend to have the ink pads that I use a lot on my website. So let's just give that a good inking. And then I can place that there. Well, I didn't place it actually. It was like just plonked down, to be honest then. It wasn't placed at all. Now, if you wanted to, you could add it a lot more random around the background as well if you wanted to. You don't have to add it, you know, so that it's perfect, you know, the whole stamp in the across the card like I've done. You don't have to do that if you don't wish. So then I'm going to ink again, and I need part of that ink, but because I don't know how much I'm using, I'm just going to ink the whole stamp. Safer to ink the whole stamp than to miss some of that area. We'll just place some on the edge there. There we go. And we're going to add our white embossing powder. Let's just take our copier paper. Now, if your card has been touched quite a bit, then maybe use your anti-static bag just to prevent any of your, you know, sort of fingerprints all over the card. Just give that a little bit of a, and then just having a good look to see if that's okay before we place that back. There we go. I did pull the anti-static bag out just in case, so just tilt that towards the light. I think I've got the embossing powder all over there. So we'll just heat our heat tool up, just so that we're not going straight onto the card without the heat tool sort of nice and warm. Just give that time to heat up. Preferably not near my face, because it doesn't take me 5 minutes to get too warm. Just turn this round. So just give it a good couple of seconds just to heat up a little bit. So I've been in the garden again, and we've got a large willow tree in the garden. It's sort of in the centre of the lawn, and we notice, because the copper beech is already in leaf, we've got a copper beech that's at the bottom of the garden, and normally the willow tree is in leaf before the copper beech is. And it's funny, just a week ago we thought, it's funny, the willow tree's not in leaf, but the copper beech is in leaf. So we thought that was a bit strange. Anyway, we sort of didn't think anything, and a month later it still doesn't look any better. So we've just had a tree surgeon in. Now this willow tree, when we moved in, was, I think they told us it was 50 years old, and we've been here 24 years, but I think the end is nigh. I don't think the willow tree is very well, because we also noticed at the bottom of the garden it was a lot more moist than it normally is with all this wet weather. And it's not just the wet weather, it's the fact that obviously the willow roots normally absorb that moisture, and they haven't been doing that. So we may have to have the willow tree taken out. So it's going to be a big change in the garden if the willow tree that we've known for 24 years is not, well, it looks pretty dead, if I'm honest. No reason why it's died. They can get a disease, it happens apparently, but we don't know. So it's just being checked again, just to make sure. But this is what happens in gardening. There are always changes, because things never stay the same from one year to the next. And that's what you have to embrace with gardening. A bit like crafting, really. You have to embrace when things don't quite go how you expect them to go. So that's fine. Let's just add, I don't think we've done that bit there. Did we do that bit? Yeah. So sometimes change is forced upon us, but these things happen. So it'll be all change in the garden if that's going ahead. Right, so I'm going to take some kitchen roll, that I probably used in my previous video. I'm going to use it, as you can see, it's falling to bits. And then what I'm going to do is use some colours I've used many, many times before. So I'm going to use mustard seed. No, not candied apple. What am I thinking? No. Let's just put that on the floor. Spice marmalade, candied apple, and then the purple. That was it. Thought I was losing the plot then. So I'm going to be using mustard seed, spice marmalade, candied apple, and seedless preserves. Let me just see if I've got... Those will do. So I'm just using my kitchen roll just to place my hand on there, and I'm going to start with the mustard seed. So let's take our mustard seed, and I've used these colours lots of times before. So we'll take our mustard seed, and I'm just using my blending brush just to apply the colour. And what I'm doing is making sure there's a nice amount of pigment on there. And then I'm going to go to the spiced marmalade. Let's go to the spiced marmalade. Just make sure I've got enough of the spiced marmalade. And then what I can do is, where's my scrap paper? What do I do with the scrap? Do you know? Let's use this bit of scrap card. Just take the excess of the orange off, and then I'll go back to the mustard seed and just blend out those lines. I'm then going to go to the candied apple, and I'm just going to clean my area up just so that we're working nice and clean. So I'm then going to use the candied apple and just blend the candied apple. And just take your time just to blend. I'm then going to go back to the spiced marmalade. Add the spiced marmalade, so sort of another layer of the colour. I'm going to go back to the candied apple, another layer of that colour, and then we'll just clean up again. Turn the card around, it just makes it a little bit easier. And then I'm going to use seedless preserves. So we'll use our seedless preserves. And just use the brush just to blend that colour. Then I'll go back to the candied apple and just use the candied apple just to add another rich layer of colour. Where's the candied apple? There we go. Then we'll take the seedless preserves again, and you can see I just keep adding that layer of colour. Let's just sort of move these all out of the way for a little bit, just so that we've got some space. And let's just clean up after ourselves. And I think we'll just move these out of the way, because it's going to irritate me a little bit with them being all on my desk. So I'm going to take a little piece of clean kitchen roll and one little spritz of water. just like that. So then go to a clean area, 1 tiny spritz of water, and then a clean piece of kitchen roll, tiny spritz of water. There we go. And then let's find another dry piece of kitchen roll, and let's just give that a little bit of a polish. Just lovely. Doesn't it create a lovely background? So I'm just going to grab the stamp again. Now, which part do I fancy? So just sort of here. So I'm going to grab a circle. So I'm just going to decide what size circle I would like. So maybe that size. And I'm just going to cut this out freehand because I'm going to distress it anyway. So you can use your dies if you wish. I'm just going to use a black biro. This is about 2 3/4 inches. So you can draw around a jar lid or whatever you wish. Now, I'm not looking for perfection. Just cutting out the circle, and sometimes I tend to hold it towards my actual torso because it's just easier closer to my body. So sometimes I forget myself. Now I'm going to distress the edges of my circle with scissors, and because I'm doing that I have to issue a warning. Obviously scissors are sharp, so please be careful. Those of you that have got paper distressers, you can use your paper distressers. Personally, I don't see the problem with distressing with scissors, but I know some demonstrators are horrified. So I just have to give that warning. There we go. So just be careful of your hands. So let's bring this in now. So this is going to go here. So if I have to think about this now. So if I have that bit, yeah, so I'm going to have this. It takes me ages to think about this. I'm just going to ink the whole stamp up at the moment because it's just far easier for me to not think about which part isn't and which part is. So I want the part with the clock nearest here. Yes, is that right? Just go for it, Tracy. It's a circle, it doesn't matter. So just inking with my black ink. There we go. So let's just, let's just wipe that black ink up. This is almost dry. That's why it's a white from earlier on in the day. There we go. So then this would go sort of, let me just, you have to find an area on your card that you can line up. And then what is there? So I'm just wondering if with the edge of this I could put a little bit. So I'm just going to ink the whole stamp again, just because that's me and it works better in my head if I ink the whole stamp rather than try to ink a specific area and then missing parts of it, because that's something I would do instantly. So let's just add a little bit of this side, like so. There we go. So I'm just adding parts of the stamping to this circular piece. Let's move that out of the way. There's nowhere to move it out of the way, but... And if you've got a piece of copier paper, let's just get into good habits. Use the other side, not the side we've used for the embossing powder. And let's just give that a little bit of a blot. And then let's have a little bit of a faff. So this would go here, sort of like that. You do realise it's going to take me absolutely ages to line everything up, but hey ho, that's me all over. So we'll just grab our adhesive. Now, if I wasn't putting adhesive on, you can honestly put money on the fact that I would be able to line it up straight away. But the minute I put the adhesive on, it'll take me 20 minutes to line it up. So I just thought I'd forewarn you, because I'm good like that. So let's find something that we can sort of line it up against. There's that. I've got to turn that like that. Honestly, it is going to take me forever. Oh, I don't think it is actually. That's... Can you see I'm not pressing it down? That key is not lined up. Bring that down. Bring that across. Honestly, you can't make it up. Do you like how I go quiet? Because the concentration on my face is just hilarious. There we go. Let's grab the copier paper. And what you have to remember of is, obviously, it's not all going to line up, because, you know, I didn't put them in a straight line. So it's just to give that effect, which just looks lovely in the background. And then, which was I going to use then? I was going to add a floral. So I might add this floral here. And if I'm ever unsure, let me just wipe that black ink off there. If I'm ever unsure, there's nothing better than just checking whether you want the floral there, because that'll be 3D'd up. So let's take that floral. I want that on there actually, because I might want to add some more dimension to the wings. So don't forget, if you pick your stamps up off the acrylic block, you're going to have black ink on there. So let's just take our floral and we'll give that a really good inking. There we go. So which way do I want that? There we go. So just give your floral a really good inking, and this is the floral of my Beautilon stamp set TE7. And we're just doing nice simple idea with our stamping. She says, as my desk is an absolute tip, because I'm doing multiple projects at the same time. So let's just give this a dry. And I'm drying it just so that we don't smudge that ink. Just so that it doesn't smudge. I'm using water anyway, so it won't, but I don't know, I'm just drying it just because I felt like it. So what I'm going to do is use the same Distress Oxides. Now, those of you that use oxides quite frequently will know that the Distress Oxides are a pigment dye fusion. And because of that pigment element, they are opaque. So because they're opaque, you just want to be careful when you're colouring because you don't want to obliterate the detail with your flower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the candied apple first. So I'm just going to add a little bit of candied apple. Let's add a little bit of spiced marmalade and then a little bit of mustard seed. So like you would with your pencils or your alcohol pens, light, medium, dark. So we'll have a little bit of water. We also need to have our kitchen roll so that we don't work with something that is completely soaking wet. So I'm going to go with the dark colour first, and that is quite wet. So can you see that I'm dabbing off the excess moisture on there? And then I'm going to come in just with the candied apple. So just add the candied apple. And I'm just going to get a little bit. Now, I've watered this down. So because I've watered this down, it's therefore less opaque. And therefore, I can keep the detail in my stamp without obliterating it with the opacity from the inks. So let's just add a little bit of that candied apple, and I had to check the colour again because I do question myself what colours I'm using. I'm not going to go much further than I'm all right because they react with water. I'm forgetting what I'm using. So we'll just go round with our candied apple just around each petal because this is my darkest colour. So this is going in just to the edges, like I would if I was using a dark pencil. So if I was using my Prisma, you know by now that I start with that dark colour right at the edge and then blend with the other colours. So I now need to work clean. So we're just going to take that off. And then I'm going to go to my next colour, which is the spiced marmalade. Again, there's lots of moisture on there. So just take off the excess moisture. It means that it's not going to run away with you if you just add a little bit of that spiced marmalade. And you're going to work sort of not too wet. The minute you work with it too wet, it just floods and runs away from you. And before you know it, the area is sort of flooded and you've got nowhere to go. And we're obviously going to continue just adding colour. So this is still the spiced marmalade, just adding that spiced marmalade and blending the lines out like I would with pencils, no different than if I was using pencils, just to blend out the lines. So we've got the yellow there, not the yellow, the orange. Let's just clean the brush again. And then I'm going to add some more of the candied apple. Not using the lightest colour yet. So take the candied apple, take off that excess moisture. And noticed I hadn't put any candied apple here. And then I'm going to add, exactly like I would if I was working with pencils, I'm adding another layer of that candied apple just to give me a little bit more depth. Let's just, and you can instantly see when you've added a little bit more depth. You can see I've added more ink, but I've not added more water. I've just added the ink and whatever is there. Let's come down a little bit further on that one. So we've just, and then I'll clean my brush before we go to the next colour. And then I'm going to take a little bit more spiced marmalade. Let's do it up here so you can actually see what I'm doing. Pick up that spiced marmalade and then make sure you've not got a soaking wet brush. And because the brush is slightly wet, obviously that oxide, that red, will react to that slight bit of moisture. That's definitely mustard seed. I'm making sure that I've got the right colour. So I'm still picking up the mustard seed. So still picking up the mustard seed and blending out the colour. Still not going in with that lightest colour yet, which is the mustard seed. But obviously when the red touches the orange, obviously it mixes slightly. So I'm then going to add even more of the candied apple. A little bit less moisture. I'm running out of space now. And just pick up that candied apple and just exactly like I would with the pens, just flick out a little bit more of that darker colour. So even with your oxides, you can build up the depth. You can just build the depth up exactly the same as you would with your pencils. Let's make sure we've not missed any, which I normally do. I normally miss one. Pick up a little bit more of that candied apple and then give the brush a good clean. Oh, that was good. I literally put the water down then and just picked it back up again. There's lots of pigment in there, so you want to work clean. So then I'm going to use my mustard seed as my lightest colour, take off the excess moisture and pick up the mustard seed. And then with the mustard seed, I'm just going to come in to both those colours and just blend a little bit more of that lightest colour. Pick up a little bit more. If you've got too much moisture, just check your brush. And you can just continue to blend your colours. And then one more little touches with the spiced marmalade. You don't have to do as many layers as I'm doing if you don't wish to add as many layers. I like to make sure that I've got the vibrancy and that I've done the best I can with the products I'm using. So I'm just going in with a little bit more of that orange just to colour my floral. And I can even go in with more red once we've dried everything. Let's just clean all this up. Use my kitchen roll. Now there's no point me trying to add any white details or do any cutting out when that floral is soaking wet. I need to give it a little dry just to give it some stability so that it's not all crumply and bending as I try to cut it out. I can still see the moisture in the back, but I haven't drowned that floral, so it's not too wet. I've not absolutely soaked it. Thought my heat tool was just going to fall off then. So I'm just going to add a touch of the white border just to the floral and just cut that out. You can cut into the petals if you wish. It's entirely up to you, just to give a little bit more movement. You can also sort of cut the floral up and add more of a 3D element to it. So you could cut this bit out here and leave the outer petals and make that more dimensional as well if you wish. And I've just used the same colours throughout. As in the colours that are in the background as well as in my floral. Apart from in the floral, I haven't added the purple, and that's because my previous project was all about the purple. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't get too repetitive. So we're just going to check our gel pen and just add a few little, as if it's sort of like pollen coming out of the flower. And I'm just going to add a couple of touches of white just here and there, just to give a little bit more brightness to the design. And it's surprising, you only need a few little touches just to add a little bit of brightness to your design, a little bit more life. It is surprising what a little bit of gel pen can do. It just gives it some vibrancy. And then I can 3D my floral. You can even sort of Don't sort of squash it completely, but you can just break the fibres a little bit on the card, just so it's just a bit more flexible. Right, there we go. It's just then a little bit more flexible. So with my composition, really, I didn't need to add the stamping here. So you don't have to do that bit if you don't wish. But it's not until you build the composition that you realise at times. So before I place that down, let's grab typical. All my white cotton is at the top and my black cotton is at the bottom. So I'm going to take a little bit of black cotton, pull it out in long lengths, and then it's a little bit more sort of not constrained, sort of loose and free. If you pull out a little bit more of the loose sort of cotton, there we go, just so that diffuses the background a little bit. Let's add a little bit more of that pin flare. You don't have to add dimension if you don't wish. I love a little bit of that dimension for me. Just going to add some white splatters. Now, if you don't want your splatters to take on the colour that's in the background, then you can use your bleed proof white, just so that it doesn't take on the colour from the oxide. I quite like it when it does take on some of the colour. And I also like it when we've got the white as well. There we go. Where's the lid gone? You two can spend a week looking for a white lid. So then we will grab our wipe. It doesn't take long for my chair to have a few splatters over it. Same piece of kitchen roll. And you can see it's just lovely and vibrant, isn't it? So, there's our stamp. Will let the two wings fit on there? Yes. So, I'm going to grab the seedless preserves. I don't know whether I'm doing this or not. So just adding the seedless preserves to a piece of scrap card. Obviously, because it's scrap card, it's a little piece of card, so it moves. There we go. So let's just dry the ink a little bit. And then I'm going to take the same background stamp, and let's take those wings. Now obviously I'm stamping onto oxide, so it can appear a little bit cloudy because that's the nature of the oxides. And don't forget to blot that ink. You just need to be aware about blotting the ink. There we go. So let's just give that ink a little bit of a blot, because it's sitting on the surface, and then let's just give that a little bit of a dry. There we go. I just want to see if I want to cut these wings out just to give a little bit of dimension. Now you can cut them out as 2 separate wings, or you can cut it out as one piece. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to cut out as 2 separate wings, but let's see if I want to add, yes, you know instantly, don't you? And then I'm just going to add a few little sort of touches of white, and then I'm just going to take my adhesive and just add the adhesive just at the edge here, because I can then bend the wing a little, and then it just automatically gives it some dimension even though we've not used pin flare. So let's just cut out the other wing. I love having a little faff. Cut out that other wing. There we go. Lovely, so we can just cut that out. Let's just clean our mess up, and then we can add our little touches of gel pen. Just see if it's working. That's better. Just sort of a little touch here and there of the gel pen, and then just add a little bit of adhesive just at the end there. Might have to add a little bit more there because I've got cotton on this side. Let's just, of course I've got cotton on this side just to make it a little harder. There we go, that's better. I want it lifted up so it's got a little bit of life. I'm just going to take that Posca pen so that maybe one splatter or so just touches the wings so that it's part of the project. Then I'm going to decide on the word. What have we got on here? So, no, I don't want them. Where are you? Let's have a look. So we'll have Each Day is a Treasure from the New Beginnings stamp set. And we're going to get in such a mess because I've got so many stamps out. Which stamp have I got out from there? The floral. So where have you gone? Do you like how I just put, oh, I've reached right over and placed the floral. So if we just place that floral on there, we won't get in too much of a mess then. So we'll just take this and we want, let's just put that back. Each Day, that one. Spare piece of card. Little A7 acrylic block, just so we can stamp our sentiment. Could I use any smaller piece of card if I tried? But that's all we need. We don't need too much of a piece of card. Place that back. And then we'll just cut out our sentiment. So just cutting it down until I'm happy. I wouldn't call that straight. I'd call that just totally ski-whiffed. There we go, that's better. That's it. And I just flick pieces of little bits of card everywhere. So we'll just add a little black faux matte. We'll just add that faux matte like so. And then we'll just clean up our little bit of black ink. And then we can just add our sentiment here. So let's take our sentiment. The little faux black matte will work quite nicely when we add our black matte to the background. Just give that a couple of seconds just to grab hold. There we go. It's because there's a little bit of cotton there. So we'll then add this to our black matte, which will make that pop beautifully. Oh, and the sun's coming out again. Yay! Let's just add, just going to pick that up just to make it a little bit easier. And for once, my Posca pen is dry. I'm not trying to work with wet Posca pen. And then we'll add that to a 5x7 card blank. There we go. Just add the lid to that. Let's make sure it's opening the correct way. Sort of, I hold it up just so that I can see nicely whether I've got it where I want that. And then if you want, you could add a little bird here, but it's nice just to do something a little bit different. And I absolutely love that. I always love these colours together. So I hope you've enjoyed the process. I hope you'll give that a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.